when I started to look at the literature across different fields, I was immediately struck by the way that recent lines of inquiry in very different disciplines were beginning to cross. And we're beginning to see some awareness of that. We're seeing game theorists and biologists, sociologists and computer scientists beginning to get together around the things that they are finding that they have in common. But as of yet, there really has not been an overarching look at the systemic pattern of knowledge that seems to be emerging, and that's what we're up to here.
We have a sense that there's some huge shift that we're at the edge of with these pervasive mobile communicating technologies that are getting widely diffused now. Many of the things Howard mentions are here today. SMS, cell phones, they're around. This is not technology that's 10, 15 years on the horizon. They're here and they're in the hands of all of us. And then there are these new social and economic forms starting. Open source, Wikipedia, eBay, things that traditional economic theory or social theory might have said shouldn't work or don't work, but they are happening.
Probably the most compact definition of social dilemma is individual rationality leads to collective irrationality. Let me give you a little more expanded version of that that's not quite so tight. Tightness can be a disadvantage as well. A social dilemma is any situation in which individually reasonable behavior leads to a situation in which everyone is worse off. And this gets into the notion of if you could change the structure of the situation to encourage, not guarantee, but encourage cooperation, what might you do? And what Axelrod said is, and it's a good theme to go back to, it's a good touchstone to go back to, that sort of the bedrock for sustainable cooperation is ongoing interaction amongst identifiable others with some knowledge of previous behavior. And I think one of the great stories here that has to do with the changing economies of cooperation as you move into technology and online resources are the development of reputation systems for all sorts of things online as a way of aggregating information about past behavior in a way that it serves as an important source of information and as an important source of motivation in terms of how one should act.
Common pool resources, rivalrous resources, managed under a property regime in which a legally defined user pool cannot be efficiently excluded from the resource domain. This is a stock economics definition, and efficiently is the hedge. That is the key word that the entire definition rests on, and the point at which you can get under the hood analytically to determine possibilities and opportunities for reframing the social dilemma that's presented when you have a commons.
Cooperative behaviors have been a key to human evolution since before there were humans, so going back perhaps 5 million years. Because of the context within which a small bipedal ape, less than 3 feet tall, had to survive and reproduce successfully, when there were at that time more than 20 species of large pack-hunting predators about, for whom these little proto-hominids would have made ideal prey. Only by collective action could these animals have survived and defended themselves against these predators. So, in other words, both cooperation and competition are instrumental strategies that are pursued in the survival enterprise, or in the struggle for existence, if you want to continue to use Darwin's term. But both ultimately depend on the costs and benefits. They're not ends in themselves, they're means to being able to solve the problems of living.
And then within the community, the free license, which basically says other people can take your work and modify it, it helps to decrease an individual sense of ownership. A lot of writing projects on the internet get bogged down because people want to own the text that they've written in a moral sense. So they don't want other people hacking away at what they just wrote. And so people can write it and let go of it and say, it's not mine, it's just this text out there, it's not my article. But at the same time, it also increases a sense of shared ownership. We are a group of people who are taking care of this content, and there's a lot of people who are really, really passionate about taking care of the website and taking care of everything that's in it because it's ours. We created it together.
How did you, in the early days, achieve critical mass so that...
I think a big part of it was the prior project of Nupedia. Nupedia was a project that I had before this that was the 7-step process. It was a very academic, very structured. It was not much fun for the volunteers, and it failed. But as a part of that process, we had actually contacted a lot of academics, a lot of geeks, a lot of smart people. Everybody was excited about the idea. I mean, who wouldn't be? What we're doing, we're going to write an encyclopedia and give it away for free to every single person on the planet. Like, this is the dream of the encyclopedia through the ages. It's the dream of the internet, that people will have good quality information. People love the idea, but the system we had set up was just too much not fun. So when we set up the wiki, we already had a mass of people. We had 5,000 people on the mailing list. There were probably about 100 active volunteers, and as a result, we had a good. It got kicked off very quickly. In tech circles, this isn't really a popular thing to talk about, love, and people laugh, right? But it's really important. The idea that we're doing something for the good of humanity. We're writing an encyclopedia. It's going to be neutral. It's going to be factual. It's going to be really good quality. It's going to be readable. And we're going to give it to people. We're not just going to give them a copy of it. It's not like we're buying a bunch of Britannicas and sending them. We're going to give it to them and say, take it, do what you want with it. If you want to adapt it so you can teach it in schools in Africa, so you need to take an article that's an adult level and take it down to an 8th grade level, go for it. Go ahead. You want to take it and make a book out of it? Do that. You want anything you want to do, you can do that. And that, if you sort of let yourself be filled with the love for that, then you can really get past a lot of editing differences.
And what I think we actually need is a model for the private provision of public goods, which sounds like jargon, but I'm going to explain a little bit what I mean about that. And to make it yet more complicated, not just once, but over time. Because this is not a public good that once it's in place, it stays in place. As I said, it needs to be upgraded, maintained, and debugged over time. Which means it's a sustaining, maintenance, evolving problem as well. And actually, if you go out into the economic literature, as I have, for better or worse, you find that there are actually not good formal models for how to solve that problem. At least not models that transfer very well to the kind of stuff that we're talking about when we talk about software, open source software. I wish that I had an analytic framework that was the equivalent of the transaction cost economics framework, which was used both inside the academic research community and by business people who are trying to understand how to set up value creation ecologies. Should we make something in-house or should we buy it in the market? They had a very clear analytic. It was abstract in some sense. It wasn't operationalized in that you could say, well, here's the formula and you plug it in and you know what to do. But at least they know how to think about the problem of moving something from make or buy. We don't have anything like that when it comes to moving between proprietary and open.
The one big change is now the cost for personal publishing has fallen to zero. Anybody can be a pamphleteer. And it's not just that they can be, it's not just the act of producing a pamphlet and distributing it, but it's also that people can distribute your pamphlets for you. You know, memes can accelerate very quickly if the message is correct, if the connectivity for that meme exists in the right ways. And that's what's really different to me about blogging. It's just, it's that people, the perfect example is the Tsunami Wiki, Tsunami blog that got started. Here you had a couple people who knew how to use some tools. They took advantage of Blogger, which was absolutely free. They knew how to use it. They walked up, and suddenly within 24 hours, they had this wonderful resource that was outpacing the media and the ability to aggregate facts in a really large and complex event where the media couldn't catch up. But the interesting thing is, instead of having individuals impress government upon what they desire, it's what happens when you have groups be able to deliberate about an issue, come to a consensus, act as a constituency, and impress upon the institutions a desire for a certain change or not. you have this theory of neo-functionalism and political integration, where when you get two technocrats and they cooperate, that sense of accomplishment leads to functional spillover into new areas of cooperation. It usually starts in areas that are completely technocratic, right? How do we keep these ships and planes from running into each other? How do we distribute the Marshall aid is the perfect example. And then it goes from the Marshall aid distribution to, hey, maybe we could do a little bit of economic coordination now that we know each other and we have these ties and some success under our belt. And it leads towards the formation of the European Monetary Union, and then into an international currency, then spilling over into a completely political realm, the European Union.
We got 500,000 people self-organizing in every state of the country for this guy, and it was the Dean campaign. There was not one big tool. There was not one big thing that worked. There was a bunch of little things everywhere working somewhat, and I'm kind of a geek, so I'm going to talk a lot about the tools, but the tools we use are really simple, right? It's like Yahoo Groups and Meetup and like a basic content management system. This is not rocket science. But the point is, it's lots of different things. We threw everything we could think of and everything that people came up with at problems, and we saw what would stick. And a lot of credit gets given to Joe Trippi and the Dean campaign itself, like the campaign employees for coming up with all these breakthroughs, right? All the stuff that the campaign ended up doing. In my opinion, there really was only one real chief innovation of the campaign, and that was basically Joe Trippi saying, "Hey, if you guys got good ideas, tell us what it is, and if it's a good idea, we'll go with it. And we're just going to open up our door to anyone who wants to take this campaign into their town, into their community, into whatever they do and whatever they are on their own terms." And a lot of people responded. And those people came up with all the good ideas. Here's the concept. We're going to build public sector infrastructure. Infrastructure like you think of roads, like you think of water, like you think of tools that actually help society operate. But ours are technology. Right? Ours are tools that exist on computers and over the internet. But that's really how we frame what we're trying to do. We're just trying to build this public resource that anyone can come and use to do whatever they want to do with it.
And usually the problem with meetings is that when you have to issue a report, someone tends to dominate the meeting, and someone that is powerful, personality, ranking, sometimes very, very persuasive, and usually the recommendations of these committees start acquiring the flavor of whoever is writing the report, which is not a very good idea. You could also take a vote. And this is sort of a little bit of an intellectual joke here because it's not very good, but it's not a bad idea. Our jury system is based on Condorcet theorem, which is essentially a theorem that says that a group of people, in this case a jury, with imperfect knowledge about a case, can come up with a better answer to the outcome, whether or not the defendant is guilty or not guilty, than a single individual that knows a lot. I mean, there's a theorem behind it, and it's the basis of many, many ideas, including, democracy. Okay. I also show you the purple line. And the purple line is the predictions made by the best individual in the group. There's always someone who's better than others. But what this is telling you is what I like to say, that is the group that's better than the best. Okay? And this is a consistent result. Some people don't like it. They say, are you telling me that a bunch of mediocre physicists are better than Albert Einstein? Well, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that Albert Einstein did not invent relativity on his own. He needed Newtonian mechanics. He needed tensor calculus. He needed, non-Euclidean geometries and so on. Plus a number of people with whom he corresponded, read papers and collaborated and corrected their errors, and they corrected his errors and so on. So it's the whole cooperative effort that actually leads to better predictions. Okay.